Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the World Class Stamp. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about world class players who could have had the world class stamp for whatever reason. Their career was cut short or they didn't quite live up to their potential. And we're going to go through our list today. So, Steve, do you want to kick us off with your potential world class 11?
Yeah, for sure. This was a really interesting topic, actually, fellas, and a few names sprung to mind pretty straight up as soon as I thought about it. So I'm probably gonna jump around the positions here. Sorry. I'll just read out the list that I've got.
Okay.
Um, so I'm starting in centre midfield. I'm going for a player who I'll say his name, Abu Diaby, the Arsenal
What?
centre midfielder.
World class?
Um, I
Abu
haven't
No,
got
listen
Dhabi.
now,
fire. I
listen
haven't
now,
got
Anton.
fire. um,
Okay.
if anyone was watching this guy when he joined Arsenal and played, you know, early couple of seasons, I think he had with us before his injuries started to really take hold of him. And one season he was absolutely phenomenal. You could see a trajectory of performance coming from this lad. Um, and his body just fell apart basically, just let him down. It's really disappointing because he's probably the closest we've got to the likes of Patrick Vieira, Gilberto, those big key figures in Arsenal centre midfield. So yeah, Abu Dhabi, I think had the potential to be have the world class stamp. I do generally believe that he was a part of the French um, makeup, and yeah, no doubt he would have his trajectory was going that way.
Okay.
That's the first one.
Yeah,
Second one,
I will say he did have a fantastic, well, almost 2 seasons at Arsenal. And it's a shame the injuries took him out because that's a player I've got down as well. To get
Wow.
potentially, you never know. This is a difficult subject, this one, because
yeah.
with hindsight, everything's easy, isn't it? But these boys didn't have didn't have the career, unfortunately. But yeah, I think he's made my list as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but
You know your football.
on this one,
You
can
know
you
your
actually give
football.
out the stamp? I'm not sure whether you can actually give out the stamp or not. But
I am having it.
he's having
I
it.
saw enough. I saw enough of him to know that he was on a path to
Okay.
he was taking up that first 11 French spot in the national team. So yeah, no doubt about it for me. And I'm gonna stick with that position, centre midfield, and I'm gonna put in Jack Wilshere as well. Now some of this was down to his doing. I think he literally, as Michael Richards says, burst onto the scene as a he's 16, 17, maybe when he made his debut. I think he was quite young. I remember a game against Barcelona, the Champions League, the Xavis, the Iniestas, and he dominated, played them off the park. I think some of the things he was doing was of a 28-year-old in that game. So
Did they win that game?
can't remember actually.
Barcelona, definitely not. Definitely not. They bat the Arsenal every time. I
Yeah, yeah.
think,
It was
you
that's
know,
a
they
good
were
Barcelona
definitely
team.
not.
Yeah.
No.
So as I was saying, he had some injuries, but I don't think the guy looked after his body that well, to be honest. He was in the press, wasn't he? Some hot tubs, I think, smoking and whatnot. So I think maybe 30, 40% was down to his doing, but clearly his body was not quite up to it. His ankles were not in great shape. So he's the other centre midfielder. I'm not going to award the world class stamp to Jack Wilshere purely because he had a chance, I think, to reach that level, and I think he blew it more than his body in the case of Abu Dhabi's situation. So next one, I'm going to turn to. In fact, I'm going to stick to midfield, and I'm going to put in another Arsenal player. Is Santi Cazorla. So now he did have a pretty lengthy career before an absolutely horrific injury, but he was at the age he was 28, 29, I think, and again I think he was hitting absolute peak of his powers. Actually, the season that Abu Dhabi was hitting his peak of his powers at his age. Remember a game against Liverpool away where Zola again was just unbelievable. Podolski was in that team as well, and that was a side where there was some actual hope that Arsenal were finally coming back from deep wilderness, but it wasn't to be. But yeah, Santi Cazorla, horrible injury, got an infection then, didn't he? He had to have skin graft from, I think, part of his body down to his Achilles or calf muscle, I think it was. So he does he get the world class stamp? I'm stuttering, so I think he does not get the world class stamp. So I'm gonna sit off that one. And then sticking with midfield is Owen Hargreaves. I felt he was very, very unlucky with his injuries. I think one of the first English players that I can remember went abroad to kind of launch or start his career and really get it to take off. Did really well over there in Germany. Came over here, didn't he? And just, month after month seemed to break down. His body seemed to break down. But great player. Again, I'm not awarding him the world class stamp. He was certainly a top player. I think could have been even, he could have been close to it if his body coped with the stresses and strains of modern day football. And I think in his case, he actually did try his best. I remember a video he stuck out on the early days of YouTube, actually, where he was doing a lot of home based workouts and rehab and stuff. So I think the guy made some decent efforts to try and get his body back to where it needed to be. So that's my midfield. I'm gonna step up to up front, and this one might surprise you actually. Is Dean Ashton? Looking on Anton's face, that is a big surprise. That one. He I think retired when he was 25. I think he was 25 at West Ham. I want to say, and he just broke into the England team. Um, and in that era, there were some decent strikers around. And he was scoring goals. He was a dominance up top. But again, nasty injury, literally there and then ended his career. So in terms of the world class stamp, again, I'm not sure I saw enough of that trajectory that I talked about with Abu Dhabi to award him that accolade, but certainly would have been in the ilk of a domestic class stamp, I think, with the age he was and breakthrough he was making at club and country at that stage. And then alongside him, despite probably still being top draw anyway, but I think this guy could have gone even higher, is Michael Owen. So he had a nasty injury, multiple hamstring injuries as a youngster. And I remember hearing that one was that severe that it literally had to change and adapt his game away from that rapid raw pace of just blitzing past defenders. Clearly changed his game. He's still borderline world class stamp. But I think for me to award him that world class stamp accolade, I just feel that injury just held him back a little bit. So, but in that, I think the potential was there, and what he did before that anyway. So I'm actually gonna award him the world class stamp.
I felt
On
like
that
you kind of
basis.
talked yourself out of it and then back into it. Then is that a
Yeah,
fair
yeah,
assessment?
I think that's fair. Hey, this is live broadcasting. This is what happens. um, that's my top line. I'm going to slip back then to defense. This was actually quite a tough area of the team to fill, to be honest with you. So first, I've had to slot a midfielder actually into the centre back position just to fudge it essentially. So the first name I'm going with is Thomas Vermaelen, purely on the left foot basis, just to bring that balance to the team.
He was a centre
Um,
back though, right?
yeah, he was.
Oh, I thought
Yeah,
you
left
said you
foot
was
centre
putting
back.
a centre midfield in. Sorry, or was that a different
Yeah,
pick?
no, no,
All right, okay.
that's a different pick. Sorry, yeah, yeah, I confused matters there. Yeah, Thomas Vermaelen. He was quick as a defender. He's quite agile. He could get around the pitch, and just kept getting injured basically, and his body just didn't seem to cope with that 30, 40 game game season to take his career where it probably could have gone. He obviously went off to Barcelona at that time. and still picked up injuries regularly. Couldn't get that frequency, that stability of getting a whole season in and then doing it again the next season. So that hindered his levels to perform. I think he doesn't get the world class stamp. I think he played enough games, didn't quite show enough for me to be awarded that, even though, as I say, he didn't always play full seasons. That's Thomas Vermaelen. Then in centre back position, I've gone for I'm thinking you may have this gentleman is Ledley King. So now 1,000,000% this guy in the absence of injuries would have been world class stamp, no doubt
Yeah.
about it. I remember him training even one day in training week, just to enable his body not to break down and recover to play on a Saturday. I think he went on for a few seasons just with minimal training. His body couldn't deal with the stress, and his performances still were were up there. To be fair, it definitely hindered his international career. I think even though his performances were at the level, I think it was too much of a risk. I think to take the likes of Ledley King in the squad. Sometimes that was the kind of feeling that I got anyway at that point in time, which is a big shame. And
England was
as I say,
stacked
no doubt,
right at that time as well with centre backs.
yeah. And he was still probably, I think, along with Sol Campbell at that time, two of up
Rio
there with,
Ferdinand, John Terry.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he was certainly keeping a pace with those fellas who were playing week in, week out, training day in, day out, and generally injury free in comparison to Ledley King. So yeah, he gets the world class stamp for me. Where are we now? We're going to right back. I've actually mentioned this guy already. He's on telly a lot and talks about how he burst onto the scene, and that's Micah Richards. So again, for a right back, his body shape was ridiculous. He was, Adama Traore, like I suppose, big, muscular, broad, powerful. Very different to the Gary Neville's in that position as well. But again, injuries, I think, scuppered his career and always affected his levels. He won the Premier League. He was in that great first season at Man City that won the Premier League. I believe he played most of those games in that season and had a good season. But I think thereafter, and I'm not I suppose what age would he have been? Mid to late 20s. I think his career just started to decline, and he actually retired when he was 32, maybe even 31. It might have been. I remember him sitting on the punditry panel on Sky Sports, 33. So, and what a pundit he is. I do like the guy as a pundit. He's a good lad. He's very funny. So he doesn't get the world class stamp for me. But Michael Richards is in my could have been team. And we are going for that centre midfielder who I'm going to shove back into centre back. I think this one could surprise you actually. You might not have even thought of this name. Let's see, is Jack Rodwell. Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So I was thinking long and hard about, but to be honest, I struggled to find another centre back. If I'm honest with you,
Was you not
I was
playing
thinking about,
Vermaelen and King as centre backs, or was Vermaelen left? Were you playing Vermaelen left back?
yeah, Vermaelen's left back for me.
Okay.
So yeah, I met Rio Ferdinand had a few injuries back in the day, but I don't think it was significant enough to fit him in that category of beans despite injuries or whatever. So I'm gonna go Jack Rodwell. I think when he first came onto the scene at Everton, he looked very tidy, quality. I thought he could read the game really well. Was It wasn't quick around the pitch, but I thought he just played a very important role in those early days. And I think injuries after injury after injury, just he could never quite develop. He went to City, didn't he? Might have been around the City team when they won the Premier League. Certainly not far away. If he wasn't, and again, strung a couple of good performances together, but never could get that consistency due to those injuries. So yeah, I'm going to shove him back in centre backs. I think he could do a job
Yeah,
in reading the games, I say.
he did play
And
centre back in his career, so it's a fair shout. He only appeared 16 times for Manchester City and made the majority of his appearances for Everton, 85 appearances.
Yeah. How many total appearances did he have? You've got that up.
Career appearances, it doesn't say like an overall, but it's about
Yeah,
200, less than 200 appearances.
yeah, I would have guessed that definitely. So are we looking now for who's left?
So just your goalkeeper now. Who's your goalkeeper?
So I couldn't find one, being brutally
No.
honest. There's many keepers that have been in and out of injury, but no one really came out at me that fitted the bill here. So I've left that blank.
Okay.
So be interested to hear your sides if you've got one.
Well, let me jump in there then, because I believe I've got a goalkeeper who I believe could have potentially been world class if it wasn't for injuries, and that's Chris Kirkland. He started off with Coventry, then he got his big move to Liverpool. Fortunately, he was done in by lots of back injuries, didn't really get a chance to break into the first team, and was just kind of really the secondary goalkeeper. There's a big hype about him. He was like quite athletic, 6'6", good height for goalkeeper, shot stopper, quick off his line. Yeah, I think he could have potentially been a world class goalkeeper for England. It's hard to say, obviously, because of the injuries and what have you. But that would be my goalkeeper. I've actually got three of your full back line. So Micah Richards, you already said, unit of a player. So Kirkland, I wouldn't give the stamp to. Micah
Just to come
Richards,
in on Kirkland, Anton, I
yeah, sure.
remember I think it was maybe his dad, I think, put a bet on Kirkland to get capped for England, I think it was. Um, when he was sort of breaking into that international scene. I remember that being a big thing because you're right, he was playing really well.
Yeah, yeah, he did get
Yeah,
one
yeah,
cap for
decent-
England.
he was a decent keeper from what I can remember.
Yeah, I
A
think he
good,
had bags of
yeah,
potential,
good memory
just
there.
not really, didn't really, unfortunately, make the grade. Yeah, Micah Richards, we've said, obviously is self-confessed bursting onto the scene. He had great pace, lots about him. Yeah, disappointing. He kind of didn't really get to fulfill his potential, but I don't think it's hard to say like players didn't try, because I'm sure they all tried really hard. Just kind of it's just some of it's down to a bit of luck. So I think a lot of these players have been unlucky with injuries. So the other two is Ledley King and Thomas Vermaelen, centre back. We've already talked about them. But my left back, he wasn't actually a left back, but I'm going to stick him in there. Is Marcus Babbel. So he won the Euros with Germany in 1996. Played for Bayern Munich, won I think it was 4 league titles with Bayern Munich, 3 domestic FA Cup trophies. He had his big money move to Liverpool, and got injured, made a handful of appearances, and kind of never really made his mark. I think for him, he had the potential, I think, to be world class, but I don't think he ever kind of showed it in the Premier League. But you could say that he might merit the stamp, considering he won the Euros with Germany and was a big part of their defence. Vermaelen, I wouldn't give the stamp to, and Ledley King, I would give the stamp to. So just to complete that kind of back five there. Moving into midfield then, so Harry Kewell, I think he's another player who he had bags of potential, just kept breaking down with injuries. He had a great few years at Leeds with that kind of team with Viduka, all the rest of
Rio,
those. Rio, yeah, there's loads.
Radaby there then, I think.
Radaby, I think, was Gary Speed
Yeah,
still there at the time? Um,
Art,
Ian
Harry
Hargreaves,
Kelly,
Radaby,
Fowler.
Harry Kane.
They had a great
Viduka was an excellent striker.
Mark
yeah, he
Viduka.
was.
Yeah,
Alan
great
Smith.
player. Um,
Oh, there's a player that was hampered by injury as well, Alan
Alan
Smith.
Smith. Yeah. Yeah. So Harry Kewell is one of my other ones. Owen Hargreaves, as you mentioned. So Harry Kewell, I don't think he gets the world class stamp. Um, Owen Hargreaves, again, I don't think he quite made it to world class level during his playing career. But yeah, another one kind of cut short by injuries. One which I'm surprised no one mentioned, but maybe it's because he's kind of still playing. But Dele Alli. So again, a player who had bags of potential from a youngster. He come up single-handedly, got Milton Keynes promoted to the Championship, I think it was. Absolute baller, just coming into Tottenham like it was nothing. Didn't matter, the level changed to him, and he had maybe about 3 or 4 seasons where he was probably England's best attacking midfielder at times. But yeah, I think he's lost his way a bit now. He played for Everton. I think he got loaned out to somewhere random as well. So Dele Alli would be my other pick. And as finish off the midfield, I'd go Mario Götze, the German World Cup winner. So I think that was his peak. He scored the World Cup winning goal, and
Not a bad peak.
that's it. That was the end of his career.
Excellent.
I think he's like
I'll take that.
22. I would give him the world class stamp. I think he did reach those levels. I don't think you can if you win a World Cup and score the winning goal, I don't think you can say that's the about as high as level as you can get, right? So for me, he kind of he did have like a couple of seasons where he was at that peak, but again injuries. I think once he moved to Bayern Munich, he kind of had a few more injuries. He was pretty good at Dortmund though, where I think he played under Jurgen Klopp. So yeah, and they might have won the league title there as well. So yeah, that would finish off my midfield, and then in my front two, one will probably surprise you, so I'll go with that one first. So Robbie Fowler, he only really had 2 or 3 seasons when he was in his teenage years. Rest were hampered by injury. Ended up getting shipped out to Leeds. Turned into a bit of a journeyman striker. But for all his potential that he had in his younger days, I don't think he quite reached the heights that he could have done. Was he world class? Maybe for a season, but
In the A-League, he was.
I don't think he gets the world class stamp for me, because it wasn't consistent enough. Don't think if you just had like 1 or 2 good seasons, it was at the maximum level, I'd say. But I don't, and it needs to be over a longer sustained period to get that world class stamp for me. And I think Robbie Fowler just falls shy of that. And then another one is Adriano, who used to play for Inter Milan. So that completes my lineup. Adriano Ribeiro, I think his name was, had an absolute hammer of a left foot. Had bags of pace. Was dubbed the next Ronaldo, Brazilian Ronaldo, that is. But again, bogged down by injuries in the Italian league. I think they're a bit kind of brutal when it comes to sticking the challenges in. So he did pick up a lot of injuries, and didn't quite reach the heights. So again, for me, that's another one that could have been, and I don't think he quite hit the consistency levels to be dubbed world class for long enough. But great player, and he had a couple of good seasons. But yeah, wouldn't say
He was amazing on Pro Evo. I remember playing Pro Evo. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, he had a good World Cup for Brazil when I think they won it in Germany. So that's what kind of my memories of him as well. So another World Cup winner, but I don't think you can say that he kind of was the lead contributor to to that particular World Cup. But I think he's another that completes my 11. So Kirkland, Richards, King, Vermaelen, Babel, Kewell, Hargreaves, Ali, Götze, Adriano, Fowler. How about you, Matt?
I had Kuhl on my list actually. He didn't quite make it, so no, I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, good 11. I will start by saying, what is it with midfielders? I've probably got about 30 midfielders whose careers have gone down the drain one way or another. So, and especially Arsenal midfielders. So I can tell you what wasn't world class was the Arsenal physio team between 2005 and 2015. They were shocking, like you said in your
Wasn't there Gary Lewin, the England physio as well? Part of that.
Terrible. They got so many players. Well, on my list as well. Don't know what was going on in that decade, but no wonder Arsenal didn't win anything. They were all out sidelines basically. So there we go. I'll get around to them. I'm going to start. Goalkeeper isn't on my position. That's more, I'll say, Anton's place on the pitch, which he lives. So I didn't really have anyone there. I think Kirkland was a great shout. But I'm going to go for just, casual viewing sort of who do I think could have made it but didn't. I'm going to go for Karius at Liverpool. I think the Champions League final broke him inside, and he was never the same player after that. What can you say? Fall from grace. I mean, that's what I've got no keeper really, but that's the only one that can spring to mind was from such a high, Champions League final to such a fall. I mean, yeah, can't miss me. So there we go on that one. Uh, at the back line, then I think you've pretty much nailed it between yourselves. And Karius doesn't get the world class down, obviously. No idea.
He's got nice hair though, hasn't he?
Okay, right. So yeah,
I hope that never happens again to another
you
keeper
thought I was
ever.
like getting out there, didn't you? You thought. But, there you go. Right, back line. Back line. We're going to go for Michael Richards. Um, great player, unit of a player. Probably not first onto the scene or technically amazing, but maybe maybe he could have done better, say internationally, if his career wasn't cut short, basically. So yeah, he had a good career. He's obviously still doing a punditry in football. Excellent bloke by the looks of him. So yeah, Michael Richards goes in. We'll go for Thomas Vermaelen as well. He did play for a few obviously big clubs, Arsenal, Barcelona, like you've said. But yeah, he decent player, probably didn't reach his potential. For me, doesn't get a world class stamp. Nor does Michael Richards, unfortunately. And we're going to go for the obvious one we've all said. He was coming through a crop of top notch centre backs, and he probably would have gone to every side around the world at the time. Maybe if he was more consistent, didn't have the injury. Ledley King, 100% world class stamp, 100%. Nothing else needs to be said about that player. And then I'm going to go for one now. Defender, like you said, you're a bit tricky. So I put a player in that's still currently playing. I'm really worried about the guy because I think he's potential world class stamp, and he plays at the moment for Man City, and it's Laporte. So he is constantly injured. I think he had one and a half good seasons with Man City with consistency, and he's an absolute rock. So yeah, I thought I'd just throw him in there as a defender because yeah, I think if he doesn't recover properly, he might not reach his full potential really as a player individually. I know he's won a few things with Man City already, but yeah, I've put him in. I also did have
He's
he's not a
played.
world class stamp.
I was gonna say he played 120 games since 2018, Emerick Laporte. But yeah, I agree. He's kind of. I think it's a mixture of things. He is injured a lot, but also he's getting kind of displaced by some great defenders at City as well, right? So they got Diaz, Ake, Akanji, and Laporte, which can all play that kind of centre back position really well. So yeah, sorry, what was you going to say?
Yeah,
That
nobody's like I said,
sounds like
I
a
put him down.
disagreement there.
Yeah, well, I think his injuries have hampered him to be honest. But yeah, that's one I just thought I'd throw in there. Currently playing, and I did have Jack Rodwell actually on my list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put him in the background. I think he did play a lot of football in the end. So I know we're going. This is a difficult subject of who could have, would have, should have. So Jack Rodwell, I had him on my list, but yeah, I haven't made my side as such. But yeah, he started out with potential, but injuries cost him. There we go. Going on to the midfield now. Yeah, we've got Arsenal heavy on this one, as I've mentioned. We've got Jack Wilshere, as you've mentioned before, great player, great technically, doesn't get the world class stamp from me, but never quite reached potential, I don't think. Abu Diaby, excellent player. Yeah, so close to giving him the stamp, but just doesn't quite get it, unfortunately. He's one of them, probably need the same for one more season to make him wind up. But yeah, he gets into the midfield. And then Santi Cazorla, he was a phenomenal player. He had a good run. I can't remember the exact injury he had on his leg. Was it gangrene or something really serious eating into the tissue in his
Yeah.
leg? So that was
Yeah.
just a wipeout completely.
Yeah.
He was a great player. But
Just to recap on Abu Dhabi, he only ever made 139 senior appearances, 10 for Auxerre, 124 for Arsenal, 14 goals, and 5 for Marseille. But yeah, this is the whole point, right? Promising careers cut short. So yeah, quite a kind of but in the kind of 9-year period he was with Arsenal, only 124 appearances.
How many French caps?
16 French caps, 1 goal.
He would have been top draw. I'm sure of it.
Lots of competition
Yeah.
there. Claude Makelele springs to mind.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one of them. Unfortunately, we'll never know. But yeah, like I said, there's you've touched on all the other midfielders really. Harry Kewell, I think he did have a good shot at this game, so I don't think he was quite world class. Owen Hargreaves again cut short really, but don't think he was world class. Because of the injuries, I still can't give it to him. I still can't give it to Owen. Sorry, Hargreaves. That is. Yeah, really tough on this one. Really tough on these, unfortunately. Yeah, so there was a few other midfielders and some old school midfielders, which I think there was other parts of the game, especially in the 90s, that wasn't brought to press. Say drinking, alcohol, women, all that. And one that comes to mind is from the class of '92, Lee Sharp. He was a budding footballer, went off the rails completely. It's from what I remember. He had some excellent games for Man United. Was in the click in that squad. Completely fell off. He doesn't get a stamp at all, but he's on that with maybe Keith Gillespie in that era, gambling, losing his way, feeling the pressure, burnt out. Those type of players, they might have ended up like the stalwarts that we've got today. Big Scholes, Beckham, that sort of midfield. But
what about
maybe
Paul Gascoigne?
Yeah.
Is he could have been, or is he could have been, or is he certified world class?
He's
Showed enough, didn't he? Showed enough.
Oh, he went around. He's not in this. I don't think I think he really reached his potential. So I don't think he gets
Really?
this.
He didn't. I don't think he quite reached his potential, but I still think he managed to get to world level. But I think
I agree.
he kind of.
Yeah, I think he reached his potential and got to world level. Yeah.
Yeah,
Does
I
get a
think he
stamp
could have
going
been
out in a different
even.
episode?
He could have been even better. Yeah.
He could have been even better if he wasn't for the drugs and the alcohol.
He did have a bad injury, right, when he was early 20s, I think, and
Yeah.
that did scupper a little bit.
Didn't he try to tackle Roy Keane and injure himself when he was playing for Newcastle in maybe a cup final or something?
I don't know.
I thought I remember reading that in Roy Keane's autobiography, but yeah, yeah.
You could insert any name
Just a
there,
random one I
Roy
thought I'd
Keane.
throw out there. Yeah.
Yeah, like you say that George Best, did he reach what he was a world level footballer. But like we said, I don't think those two in names in particular did have the drink problems, have gambling, all the other stuff. So yeah, maybe for another episode that maybe the great British players of all time, maybe. But yeah, those two in particular, I think they sort of make this side, or should be mentioned in this side as well. Even though they were earlier days of the Premier League, thought I'd give them a mention. And then up front, I'll sort of give game away a bit earlier, mentioning that lead side. Alan Smith, he goes in. Don't think he
Really?
quite reached his potential in the game. So I put him in. And Steve, you mentioned a few players there, which I think they did reach their potential, especially strikers. There's a few strikers got here, 3 or 4 strikers who I think reached their potential, even with the injuries. So I'll be giving the stamp out for them or not in a different episode. But I think Alan Smith is on this list, definitely. And I've had to put an international player, and Anton, you've had this one in yourself, Adriano. I think, I know I've gone all Premier League there really, but I thought I'd mention this one on this list. Actually, I'm not sure whether Listy's going to get on for me. But Adriano from Brazil, yeah, on the cusp of getting it, but I can't give him the world class stamp. I think I've only given Ledley King out of the whole squad. So
Not Diaby?
Diaby,
Yeah, tough that one.
Tough.
Abu Diaby, 139 appearances. Does he get a world class stamp?
Oh, tough.
He would have been.
And that's the whole point in this list, right? Would have been.
Exactly.
But if you're watching, who do you think would have been world class? Drop it in the comments below and let us know your pick.
I got 2 names we haven't mentioned.
I am going to stamp him. He would have been good. Diaby, he's getting there.
It's a no for me.
Diaby and King.
Not enough games.
I got two names to throw in we haven't mentioned.
Go on in.
One is in a position that we all struggled with actually, and no one rather has gone there. Jonathan Woodgate.
Yeah.
Yeah, no comment. Okay, fair
Probably
enough.
for good reason,
Um,
right?
So that
and
some we go past.
and the other one, probably less on anyone's radar. But what a horrible injury in a season where actually Arsenal were again getting to that point again where potentially, in fact, I think we were top of the league at the time. This happened is Eduardo, striker,
Yeah.
Croatian, or Brazilian, born Croatian or whatever it was. He was banging the goals in that season until he got injured in that February.
Yeah,
So,
destroyed
but
his ankle, right?
Was
yeah,
that
yeah.
Shawcross? Was that Shawcross or did Shawcross injure Ramsey
I think that was Ramsey, wasn't
season?
it? Sure,
I think
cross.
Well,
I think it was Birmingham City Taylor, the right back. I think rings a
yeah,
bell.
Hmm.
Yeah, awful. So yeah, nowhere near
yeah.
world class stamp, but certainly was doing the business at the time.
We did just mention him. What about Aaron Ramsey? Does he kind of is he in the conversation at least,
He's in the conversation. I
or
think he
did, or
played
did
enough.
he or did he recover enough from his injuries? Because he was injured a lot, right? Uh, but was that
I think
directly a
he,
result of Shawcross, or did he recover enough and then just broke down for other reasons?
It
I
definitely
think
affected him.
I think Ramsey reached his potential. He had a good enough glittering career. Yeah, he does need to be in this
Glittering,
list. Almost.
Yeah,
glittering.
and
So
he won quite a few FA Cups with Arsenal, right?
Yeah, he had some top performances. He
Was it
did.
like three on the
For me,
bounce?
yeah, he had one unbelievable season where I think he got close to like maybe in 15 goals. I think he scored.
There was one
Um,
season every time he scored, someone kept dying, right? The Aaron Ramsey curse.
yeah,
So,
that's it. Yeah, but he just didn't string it together enough.
which is terrible, mind. Let me just put that out there. How you can attribute a death to someone scored a goal? That's shocking. Uh, yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll
another player with another
go
player
on
with
then.
a break, probably didn't recover from. Not saying he was going to be world class. Was Cisse for Liverpool.
Gibro,
Um,
yeah,
It's real
he had
CC.
a big leg break.
Double
Not
leg
even on
break.
Sky Sport. Yeah,
nice,
it
wasn't
wasn't
it?
the best. It wasn't the best.
His leg looked like a boomerang. It was yeah.
Yeah, don't quite. Yeah, don't think he ever recovered really, but
Lost a
doesn't the
lot of his
best. Anyway.
pace. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Agree. Yeah. I think there was some other strikers on there though that probably put ahead of CC. So as could have been. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other
No,
call outs or challenges, guys, on that one?
no, they're the.
Just
Sorry,
go
go
on,
on,
Matt.
Steve. Go on, Steve. Honest.
To
I
me,
was
to
just going to
you.
draw it back. I was just going to draw it back to the thing that stuck out with me. Actually, it was is the heads up to Karius. I mean that, yeah. Injuries aside, that's an aspect that literally obliterated his career.
Mm.
I'm sure that's happened a couple of other times to
No, it's not the
players,
first
but
time Bale has destroyed someone's career, right? He destroyed Mycon's career at right back as well. And I also think Paul Scholes said he retired because of Gareth Bale as well. So
while you mentioned Mycon, somebody commented on our last episode where we were talking about which right back has single-handedly changed the game, and that name came up, Mycon. So that was interesting.
not for me. But there we are.
To
Leave
the
that
airport.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we'll leave it for this episode. So let us know what you think, guys. Drop a like if you enjoyed.